Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of BRS, the Belgian Raiffeisen Foundation, I wish you all a warm welcome to this edition number 13 of the Microfinance Lunch Break. Number 13 indeed proved to be a difficult one, since the edition was planned and cancelled already in late 2015 due to terrorist attacks here in Brussels and in Paris, and a traveling ban by Vodafone for its employees, so our honored speaker couldn't show up. So it had to be postponed until today, but here we are again, and these microfinance lunch breaks in the meantime have become a landmark in the Belgian financial and economical circles. As a lot of you already know, the aim of the microfinance lunch breaks is to raise the awareness and to increase the interest for the challenging world of both microfinance and microinsurance. Today we go already for edition 13, and you can state there is a real interest for the subject. And as promised earlier, we will try and alternate the subject between, on the one hand, microfinance and on the other, microinsurance. BRS is convinced that with ADA, Febelfin, Assuralia, KBC and SERA, it has strong partners who are convinced of the important role microfinance and microinsurance play and will play in the future in the domain of interesting developing evolutions in the South. All our partners are willing to support this initiative very actively. I especially would like to thank KBC, our valued structural partner of BRS, for their support and generous hospitality for our microfinance lunch breaks. We kicked off the first edition of this microfinance lunch break in February 2009, and since then, through a number of well-known and experienced speakers in the review, we discussed a variety of issues of the world of microfinance and microinsurance. And so we are here again today with a new and undoubtedly daring question, given the venue where we are. Can we imagine a world without banks? The intriguing experience of mobile money by pioneer M-Pesa. When Michael Joseph, our today's honored speaker, talks about mobile money, one should listen. Michael will share his vision on financial inclusion and how mobile technology is creating new opportunities to provide services at the bottom of the pyramid. Michael Joseph is a US citizen holding a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Cape Town. He also has an honorary doctorate degree from Africa Nazarene University, bestowed to him in recognition of his contribution to the growth of Safaricom from very humble beginnings to becoming one of the most innovative, influential and profitable companies in the East African region. Currently, Michael is employed by Vodafone Group Services Limited as the Director of Mobile Money, and he is responsible for leading the strategic growth and development of the successful M-Pesa proposition across the Vodafone footprint. He was one of the first World Bank Fellows appointed in 2011 to advise governments, regulators and other institutions on mobile money and other ICT initiatives. And previously, Michael was the founding CEO of Safaricom Limited in Kenya, steering the company from a subscriber base of less than 18,000 in 2000 to over 17 million subscribers at his retirement in November 2010. After the success of mobile payment service and its introduction in Asia and Europe, the sky seems to be the limit with new services such as savings, borrowings and microinsurance. Do banks, microfinance institutions and microinsurers have to be concerned of being made redundant? Or should they rather embrace this evolution or revolution and look for new opportunities and partnerships to increase their outreach and create value for their clients? Indeed, intriguing questions that should keep us awake at night. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have a challenging subject and a renowned speaker. Together with you, I'm looking forward to an undoubtedly fascinating presentation. And after the presentation, there will be a questions and answer session, followed by some closing remarks addressed by Bart Verbeek, General Manager, Strategy and Organization, KBC Belgium. I'm now very happy to give the floor to Michael.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me here. As you said, I've tried to come here several times and haven't been able to do it. But this subject that I'm going to talk about today is very close to my heart. I'm a very dedicated and passionate supporter of mobile money in the emerging markets. I started with this in 2007 in Kenya, in Safaricom, when I was the CEO of Safaricom. And when we started in 2007, we didn't know or even think that this would be so successful and take off so well in Kenya at that time. And I'm not saying to our surprise, but after a lot of effort, we were extremely successful. And I'm going to talk about this product, this service. I'm going to answer some of your questions about how does it impact the traditional banking world, and where are we going to see this product, how this product is going to grow. But I just want to say that I'm going to talk about the emerging market. I'm not going to talk about the developed market. I think banks are reasonably safe still in the developed world. But in the emerging markets, in the developing world, I think there is a big challenge for us to try to provide financial services to people at the base of the pyramid. So I'm going to talk about M-Pesa. M-Pesa, just for you to know, M-Pesa is the Swahili word for money. It originates from the Indian word paisa, which was the Indian word for money, and we called it M-Pesa, mobile money. I think, in my view, that this M-Pesa is the next revolution to change the African and emerging market landscape. If you saw when the railway lines came to Africa way back in 1700s, 1800s, then the motor car came, and then we started to do some telecoms. But the big revolution really started in 1973, and then really in 2000 when mobile communications came to Africa. 2000 started at a very big break. It changed people's lives. It brought affordable, low-cost communication to people who never could even think about, dreaming about talking to one another across vast distances for a very low price. And then now, together with mobile money, this is the next, I believe, the next revolution that can change people's lives for the better. And you only have to look at the World Bank statistics to see that how true this is. Mobile money cannot work everywhere. There's only specific places where it can work. And we have determined over time and through trial and error that where there is a huge gap between mobile penetration and financial penetration, that's where the opportunity is. So you see all these countries listed across. These are all, of course, African countries. There are other countries in Asia, such as India, where we have a similar graph where the mobile penetration is very high, but the banking penetration is quite low. And where that gap exists, this is where mobile money can be successful. So if you look at, say, countries like Belgium, for example, where you have a high penetration of mobile communications here, but you also have a high penetration of bank accounts. So it's quite difficult to be successful in the developed world where you have a very low gap between mobile penetration and banking penetration. There are now today, fortunately for us, there are over 271 operations around the world, mobile money operations around the world today, starting from the Philippines before we launched in Kenya in 2007, and now in various countries around the world. However, unfortunately, if you look at these statistics, there are only really 15 or 16 countries where this has been successful. In terms of success, we're talking about scale, not in terms of so much in terms of profitability, but in terms of scale, in terms of the number of active subscribers and revenue per subscriber. And there are big challenges in mobile money. It is not a simple thing to roll out. It's not, if you look back in Kenya now and you see how successful we are in Kenya, it was not easy. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of passion, a lot of dedication, and quite a big investment in your distribution network to be successful. And so I'm sad to say that we only have, say, 15 or 16 markets that are successful today. There should be a lot more. And let's hope for it. I thought 2015 was going to be the year that we'd be successful. It never happened. Perhaps 2016 will be successful. You can see where all these mobile money operators are. Obviously, they are in Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is where most of the successful mobile money operators are. And this has been spawned by the success of M-Pesa in Kenya, and then taken from there with various operators. We are today probably the most successful. We are for sure the most successful today. We have just over 25 million active subscribers. When we talk about active subscribers, because there's a difference between customers that register for the service and customers that use the service. We talk about customers who've actually done something, made a transaction in the last 30 days. That's what we call an active subscriber. So we have 25 million active subscribers. Apparently that's more than the entire population of Australia, so I'm quite happy about that. So this is where we are. This is where Vodafone is now. You can see that we are now, this is basically, we've covered the entire Vodafone footprint where we have mobile operations. And you can see we are, across the continent of Africa. And then two new ones, which is in East Africa, in Eastern Europe, which is Albania and Romania, which are very special cases. And I'll talk about that a little later, why we started with mobile money in these two countries. Of course, we are very successful in Kenya, about 16 million active subscribers in Kenya. Tanzania is about 7 million, and so on. India is the big one. India, for me, is the next big prize. At the moment, we are not there yet. It's taken a long time. We've been operating in India now for 4 years. The banking regulators changed the game plan a little bit, actually in our favor. But still, India is the market where we could be really successful. And where actually the banking community is much more successful than what we are at the moment. And actually very cognizant of what they can do for the base of the pyramid. And I think this is the next big goal when you consider that there are 200 million migrant labor moving around India at any one time. So these people send money home at least once a month, maybe twice a month. And how do they send money home is a big challenge. Most of the banks are working on this now. M-Pesa is very simple. It was designed to be very simple. It was designed focused basically on the base of the pyramid. I once used the term the bottom of the pyramid to somebody in one of the Harvard business schools, and they said there's no such thing as the bottom of the pyramid. It's insulting. We have to talk about the base of the pyramid. So it was specifically designed for the base of the pyramid. It was not designed for the tip of the pyramid. But today, many people use it, including myself. I use it a lot, but it's designed for that. So therefore, anybody with a basic phone can use it. Nowadays, smartphones are penetrating more and more. Maybe 50% of our market now is a smartphone penetrated. But still, its basic phone is based on SMS. You don't have to have a bank account. It uses a PIN. And if you lose your phone, which happens a lot in Africa, you don't lose your money because the actual money sits on the SIM card. And if you swap your SIM card over, your money's back there. So it's a very simple proposition and for people to use. How does it work? It's very simple. You go to, if anybody knows what the Hawala system works, the old Hawala system, it works very similar to that. You want to send money to your mother back home in the village, you go to the nearest outlet near your office, and there are 160,000 of these outlets now. They're all mostly mom and pop stores who are doing this as a complement to the other businesses. You go there, you give them the cash through a series of SMSs. They convert the cash into electronic money, which sits on your SIM card. You can then transfer that with a simple messaging system. You can transfer that to your mother who lives in the village. She gets an SMS to say she's received this money. You get an SMS to confirm the transaction has been completed. This happens in seconds. There's no settlement. The settlement and transaction takes place at the same time. When she gets the money, she can go to her nearest outlet, which is designed to be no more than 300 meters from her home. So you can imagine that's quite a big challenge in Africa to do that. And she can then take out all the money, or she can keep the money on her phone, and she can use it to pay her TV bill, her electricity bill, to pay school fees, to top up her phone for airtime, and many other things that she can do with it. And that's simply how it works. The agent who operates gets a commission for every transaction that they enable. And it's a tiny commission because the average transaction fee is extremely low, designed to be about 1% of the transaction value. And this is really an important factor to make this affordable for people at the base of the pyramid. And we share that transaction fee with the agent, so you can see there's very little money to be shared here, but in the end, you can be profitable if you have enough customers. I'm actually going on this quite quickly because I've been told I only have half an hour, and then then you have lots of questions to answer. I can talk about this all day if you would like, but I don't think the host would like me to talk all day. So we start with cash in. We start with basically sending money, transfer money, sending money home, which was the original proposition that we started out with, to send money home. Because in Africa, people migrate from the rural areas to urban areas to work, but they generally leave people behind at their home because they value their land, and so this is a way to send money home. And then gradually we add new things like buying airtime, paying your TV bill, paying your utilities, paying school fees, and then we move on from there. So the basic thing we start out is to fill a basic need. And then from there, it grows. And from there, it grows, and you can see some of the things we are doing today. We're doing things like disaster relief. We're working with the World Food Program in the refugee camps in Kenya and Tanzania. We are working with farmers. We're working with water suppliers, Grundfos pumps, to provide water for a very low cost. Healthcare for micro health insurance for sending money to people who are vulnerable and need money for healthcare. Paying for energy for solar light with a company called M-Copper. And then also for education, education, small doses of education where you get the school curriculum on your phone or on your pad, on your laptop or whatever it is, and you pay a small amount of money for that. So we're working with a lot of things, and the sky is the limit here. You can go wherever you need a low-cost transaction, you can go with M-Pesa. So it's what I want to emphasize, it's to make this successful, you need more than just a technology, more than a favorable regulatory environment. You need more than that. You need to build a big distribution network. This is where many of these 93 companies or 273 operators have failed, is you have to build a big distribution network. This is replicating your traditional bank branches in a mom-and-pop store. These are mom-and-pop stores, but they are dealing with people's cash. So the regulator is concerned that to protect the customer. So we need to manage these agents very carefully and quite ruthlessly to make sure they don't steal the customer's money. And we need to brand them. So to build a big distribution network where somebody doesn't have to walk more than 300 meters down the road to do a cash in or cash out takes an enormous amount of effort, enormous amount of investment. And this is what is required to be successful. Somebody asked me earlier, what is the secrets of success here? There are no secrets. There are 4 or 5 fundamental elemental things that you need to do to be successful. And you can't do 4 out of the 5, you have to do all 5 in order to be successful. And one of them is the distribution. Behind the scenes, you need a very serious, capable back office. People send money. People are sending money. It's generally poor people who are sending money. And if their money doesn't reach the intended recipient or it doesn't work, people get concerned and get worried. If you lose, most of you in this audience lose 100 euros, okay, you'll be upset, but you won't be desperate. Many of these people will be desperate, they lose this kind of money. So we need to have a back office where people can call and say, can you help me? I've lost my money, it's gone to the wrong person, I made a mistake with the digits that I put in. So you need a big back office. When we started, in fact, as little as 2 years ago, we were getting 700,000 calls a day on mobile money alone. Most of them because they sent money to the wrong person. I mean, and this is quite easy to do because I'm not sure how many of you know your partner's mobile phone number. You probably have it on your address book, but not many. And in this product, you need to input the person's number, and many people get the number mixed up or send it to the wrong person, and we need to reverse this. Technology is changing now to help that, so you can actually pull from your phone the person's name, so you can make sure you send it to the right person. And this needs to continue to work. It doesn't happen overnight. If you look at all of these mobile money products around the world, generally, they will not be successful until their 3rd year. You can imagine in our business today, particularly in the telecoms business, in the mobile telecoms business, waiting 3 years for a product to start to turn around. It doesn't happen in our business at all. We wait 6 months. If the product doesn't work, we pull it. In mobile money, you have to be patient. You have to wait 2 or 3 years before you're successful. Just today, I heard that our product in Mozambique has just topped 1 million customers. That has been now 4 years. Sustained effort. Now they're at the tipping point. Now it will become viral, and I won't have to worry about Mozambique for a while. So but it takes a long time before you can see success. From a regulatory point of view, many people say that in Kenya we were very lucky because we had a very benevolent head of the regulatory organization there. The governor of the central bank was very laid back about it. But in fact, it wasn't. We don't want no regulation. We want a light touch regulatory environment. In India, we are very regulated very much. Mozambique, we're very regulated. In Kenya and Tanzania, we were not so regulated. In fact, we were not regulated, but we worked with the central bank as if we were regulated. So whatever they want us to do, we did. And you need the outlets where you do your cash in and cash out. In India, when we started, the regulator said all those people had to be KYC'd, they had to be tax compliant. It was very difficult to sign up agents under that requirement. Now they've relaxed it a little bit. Still, they need to be KYC'd, but they're not so strict about that. Because our average transaction is 30 euros. So why would you go through a full KYC if your average transaction is only 30 euros. And the same with KYC for our customers. We need to KYC, we need to know who our customers are. We don't, not just for our own sake, from a regulatory point of view, but also because of anti-money laundering rules and terrorism financing rules, we need to know who our customers are. So this is a fundamental, but it's just how much do we need to know about them? As you probably know, in Africa, nobody has there's not such thing as an address, a street address. So how do you determine what the street address is? Is it not just okay to know who you are, your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, and you have a valid, a real, original identification document? And that's where we are working towards. And that's some of the work I did when I was with the World Bank. The power of M-Pesa is tremendous. It increases customer loyalty. Now, I don't know how many of you here have got a mobile phone and you are on a contract basis, but you know, what mobile operators do for you is they say to you, they put handcuffs on you, and they say, if you stay with me, in 2 years' time, I'll give you a free phone. And so that's their idea of loyalty. Okay, I shouldn't really say that. I come from a mobile operator. I don't want to do that. I want customers to stay with me because they love me. And I use that word deliberately, that they love me. And if you deliver a product that will change people's lives for the better, they will stay with you come thick or thin. And we prove that over and over again in all of our operations where we're severely strong competition. We are generally a premium priced operator. We hardly lose any customers. In Kenya, as a matter of fact, where we have free number portability, where you can move from one operator to another and take your number with you for free, we are 50% more in price in terms of data and voice. We have lost 16,000 net outs out of 19 million customers over the last 5 years. And the power is M-Pesa. That keeps your customers with you, but they don't stay because they have to stay with us because there's competition for M-Pesa, but because they love you, because your product always works. It always works 100%, and if it doesn't work, there's a solution to make it happen. One of the biggest things which I'm really proud of what we have done is we launched this product called M-Shwari in November 2012. As you know, in Africa, it's very difficult for people to save. I once made a mistake at the World Bank of talking about that Africans don't save. And I said, I used that word, don't save, and the managing director of the World Bank at the time, who then became the finance minister for Nigeria, said to me, interrupted me and said, that's not true. They want to save, but they cannot save. It's very difficult. So we created this M-Shwari product where you can save as little as 1 euro cent. Move 1 euro cent from your M-Pesa account into your savings account, and it earns interest, and it's free. You can move it in and out as many times as you like. It's free of charge. And when you have developed a savings history of 6 months of savings, you can borrow a multiple of those savings just by SMS. You send an SMS, say, I want to borrow, there's a menu, I want to borrow so much money. They look at your savings history, they look at the credit score that we've given them based on their spending habits on the mobile phone system, their longevity of the mobile phone system, and they get a loan. And it's normally a 30 or 60-day loan. This has been a tremendous success. Where we had no savings accounts, 0 savings accounts in Kenya, we now have 7.1 million savings accounts. And I'm sorry, these figures are in Kenya shillings, but they're about 5 billion shillings is about 30 million pounds, or 30 million euros. So you can see there is a substantial amount of money, it's 30 million pounds in euros in savings, but a little bit more in savings. This is a tremendous product because now you have people, particularly women, who want to save for the future. And you know, we have things like women get paid there, particularly in Kenya and agriculture. In Tanzania, women get paid cash by their employers. Now they get paid with M-Pesa, and immediately they get paid by M-Pesa. They move their money from the M-Pesa account to their savings account, mostly so their husbands can't touch the money. And this has been a tremendous success, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved here. And I think the next slide is going to be I hope it's the next slide, I think it is a video, but it's a funny video. It's an advert we made to encourage people to save. It's in Swahili, but there are some English subtitles, and I'm told that I shouldn't say I hope it works because it did work a few minutes ago.
Watoto wamelala.
Watoto wamelala.
Soko imekuwaje leo?
Soko imekuwa mzuri, hata nimepewa pesa ya chama. Hiyo pesa nimenunua matresi yetu mpya, ile yetu mzee nimeuzia kina mama Pauline.
Ati nini?
Nimeuzia kina mama Pauline ile yetu mzee.
Matresi yetu?
Si ndio?
Nimenisahau. Pauline. Chukua hii matresi mpya, unipe yangu mzee. Pauline, fanya hivi. Kuzeni yake mnizindikisha tafadhali. Ita pia Pauline.
Lakini Pauline ako class.
Ni sawa tu tukiwa wengi ndio mzuri. Wacha kuuliza kuna nini tuambie hapa. Sikizeni Tunaanza operation linda madre sasa. Itaumba.
Usihangaike kulinda pesa zako. Tumia M-Pesa kujifungulia akaunti ya M-Shwari. Uweze kuhifadhi kiwango chochote cha pesa kwa simu yako.
So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I think the advert speaks for itself. But I think we're very proud. In general, in Vodafone, we're very proud of what we have achieved with M-Pesa. It was a hard thing to do. It was not easy. The corporation sometimes said, why are you spending our money, our profits on something that has got nothing to do with telecoms? But I think we've proved in our industry now that probably Vodafone is the most successful in the world with mobile money. We've persevered. We're now trying to take it. We have it in our footprint. We're trying to take it to the rest of the world. There's many people who are interested in licensing this from us. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think this is the future. As I say, I don't think banks need to worry, but they need to be concerned about how they deal with the people at the base of the pyramid. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Michael, for this presentation. Normally, when we have this, sometimes I have to invent some questions in advance in order to make sure that there are some questions. This time, it was not difficult at all. We had 45 questions. 10 of them were not relevant, but 35 were. I shared these questions in advance with Michael, so he already tackled some of these questions on trust, risk, regulation. I just take one out of it and then I leave it to the audience to ask questions. It's about competition. Especially is the question from the microfinance sector is, are you filling a gap that they weren't able to do so? And their question is, you have now for this system that you are talking about on M-Shwari, it's in collaboration with the corporate bank, CBA in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a partnership with the microfinance industry. So their question is, you were saying banks have to be concerned. What's your vision on the future in this field?
I think it's interesting because when actually the actual origination of M-Pesa was actually a product designed specifically for the microfinance industry. It wasn't intended to be for mobile money or send money home. It was intended for the microfinance industry for the disbursement and repayment of microfinance loans. We actually trialed it as such in Kenya in 2006. However, the microfinance industry didn't like it very much. They thought they still wanted to have the personal touch of the collection of the loans and of the payments and so on. And they've never really taken to it. They really didn't see it as a big value for them. However, in the last 4 years now, in Africa now, we're seeing more microfinance institutions now wanting to be part of M-Pesa. I think the whole thing now is that if you look at the competition, I mean, we talked about banks. There's an amusing story which I can tell, not now, but later on, about how the banks tried to stop us and formed a committee and went to Parliament and tried to stop us and said this is a Ponzi scheme and things like that. And when they failed, I think they accepted us. But every single bank, both in Kenya and Tanzania and in Mozambique, are connected to the M-Pesa system. So you can move money, like I want to say, send money to my staff in Kenya where I still have a home. I can move money from my bank account, my Barclays bank account, into my M-Pesa account and then spend the money. And I think this is where I see the advantage for the banks, because we can reach the low-end customer, the base of the pyramid customer, much more effectively and much more inexpensively than what you can. I think the microfinance industry is a bit pity they haven't grabbed onto this initiative, but I think they're coming around now because they see this as a huge reduction in cost to manage their loan portfolio.
For other questions, we do have 2 microphones, so just raise your hand and we will hand you the microphone.
So this is I'm Mina Zhang from the World Savings and Retail Banking Institute. We are the banking association, and we have member banks from developing countries like in Kenya, which is Kenya Post Office Savings Bank, which is also a partner of M-Pesa, I think. I would like to know more about your experience about lending, P2P lending. How do you manage the risk assessment?
Okay, so the idea is with this, it's a very good question, because when I first started M-Shwari, the idea that I had was that the customer could borrow a multiple of their savings. They could borrow it for 60 days or more. The interest rate would be very low. And this is my original idea. The bank, of course, had a different idea. They were more worried about the security of their money and all that sort of thing. So first they only would lend a fraction of the saving. They would freeze the savings account while the loan was outstanding, and the interest rate was exorbitant, something like, I think 7.5% per month. I can't remember what it is annualized. So this is just ridiculous. So I persuaded the banks, mostly through threat, that I would go to another bank, that you need to change the way of doing things. First of all, we will give you a credit score based on our customers' behavior. So we developed the algorithm that's based on the customer's top-up behavior, their spending on a monthly basis, how long they've been a customer, how much savings did they do, and we will give you the credit score. And therefore, you should lend a multiple of their savings, not lock their savings, and trust the customer. In fact, over the last year, which is when they started to do this, our actual bad debt ratio at the moment is less than, I think it's 1.8% at the moment, of the value of the loans outstanding, which are bad debt. And most of the bad debt is through misunderstanding of what the customer is supposed to do, because they're inexperienced, unsophisticated. They actually think the money is forever, so they don't have to pay it back. So lots of SMSs later, some of them will pay it back. But I think our experience is very good. And I think this is a lesson that poor people will pay back their loans. And I, in fact, want to persuade them now to move that to be 1-year loan and much more money so they can buy, for instance, popular in Africa is a motorbike. At least they should be able to buy a motorbike with a loan, and let's see how that goes. But it's a learning curve, for us. Traditional banking has been around. I think I asked the question last night. It was 1400s, right? Something like that. I mean, we've only been around for 7 or 8 years now. So we still have to learn what's the right thing to do, what's the right balance. And I would hope that we will grow. I don't think we'll ever grow to lend money to buy a house, but certainly to buy a motorbike, I think, is where I would like to go.
We are creating a Belgium remittance platform to send money to mobile money in Africa, and also with Vodafone. And we noticed something, it's how much people can stock their money. It's a limited amount. And how do you think it will evolve in the future? Because normally it's $1,000 to $2,000, like in Congo. But when you want to save more than that, how the people store money and save money for a long time, so if the amounts go over the balance.
So obviously the M-Pesa system, and because we have an operation in Congo. I think it's now up to the regulator what the regulator would like us to do. I didn't talk about Romania and Albania, but one of the reasons why we established mobile money in Albania and Romania is mostly for international remittances, to allow most, Albania, I don't know if you know, but more Albanians live outside Albania than live inside Albania, and to allow those people to send money home. But we don't want to compete with the banks in money transfer and sending international remittances. So we're not talking about big amounts of money. I think we are limited by what the regulator allows us to do. So it's probably no more than 1,000 euros that you can send with mobile, sending money from World Remit or any of these Western Union or MoneyGram that you can send internationally on mobile money. Because the money goes straight from the remittance agency into their wallet where they are, and then they can either use it or use it or keep it on their phone. I don't know what the history is of how long they keep it. I don't know that specifically. That was your question, right?
Yes.
I wasn't sure I get your accent, so I'm not sure I really answered your question. But you can ask me afterwards if you like, so maybe I can answer you more properly. But international money remittances is going to really grow in this field, because there are many, many millions of people who want to send money home but are intimidated by going into a bank or to a Western Union or MoneyGram and want to send small amounts of money, like 100 euros home, and it's difficult for them and also very expensive. Now with World Remit and all these other company Transfer to, and who are now connected to our hub, the actual fees are something like the order of 2% to send money into an international transaction, which is very simple and immediate, once again, immediate. Then we try to persuade the remittance agencies not to make money on the fee, but to make their margin on the exchange rate.
We informed also that we are alternating between the topic of microfinance and microinsurance. And I learned that you're also actually active in the field of microinsurance. Can you explain something more about that?
We have two things we're doing. We've done things like life insurance and things, but I'm not a believer in life insurance for the emerging markets. But we have done two other ventures in microinsurance. One is crop insurance, and this was sponsored or done in joint venture with a seed company from Switzerland called Syngenta. Is if you buy a bag of seed from Syngenta, there's a barcode on the bag of seed, and if you scan that barcode with your phone and send that barcode together with a small payment on M-Pesa, you get crop insurance. Now, it doesn't matter if you have an issue with your crop failed because of lack of rain, they pay you out immediately because they've established weather stations throughout Kenya, so they know the rainfall is below average, and then they will pay out. And if the crop fails due to bad yield, they will also pay out immediately. So we've done that. The crop insurance is very low. Price is in cents what they have to pay. And now we're doing something else in health insurance, is providing health insurance to, specifically now at the moment, it is only focused on pregnant women, that if they buy a small amount of health insurance and pay with M-Pesa, they can get free health insurance from the time that they're pregnant till the time that the baby is, 1 year old, provided they can only get this at specific clinics which are established for that purpose. So people go to these clinics, and these clinics are certified, they have the drugs there, and they also encourage the woman, by the way, also to come to the clinics to give birth to their babies. So we try to lower the mortality rate, the infant mortality rate. So this is where we're starting out and seeing how we go with this, but I think this is the trend for the future.
Some other questions from the audience?
Hello, my name is Laura. I work at KBC, Bank and Insurance in Belgium, and I was wondering about the M-Shwari. You said that it was a big opportunity for women, and I was wondering if you could see a positive shift already in female entrepreneurship in Kenya due to M-Shwari, and because they can have some microfinancing to start up an informal business or something like that.
I don't have the figures in my top of my head, but there are some figures available. I know that MIT, and I know MIT have done some research into this, and if you look up for M-Pesa at some of their research, I have some of their papers as well, and somebody from the George Washington University have also done some research into this specific topic. All I know is that 60% of the savers are women. And that's all I know right now. And whether it has changed the landscape in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities, I don't know. What I do know is that what it has done, they measured this, is what MIT have measured, is that it has reduced the poverty level of those people who are M-Shwari customers by 2%. Now, how much is 2% of the population? I don't know, but this is what in the study that they've done. So I think it has an impact, but I don't have the figures in the top of my head. But I'm sure they are there. But I think most women, I must say this, in my experience, most women are saving for the future. They're saving for school fees and school uniforms, and those are the kind of things that they worry about, is be able to send their kids to school. As in Africa, normally education is free, but it's not a myth. It's a myth. It's not free. Just to get your kid in the school, you have to pay some money. So I think that's what they're saving for in general. But if you look up MIT or Harvard or George Washington, I know the names of the people. I can tell you who's done this fundamental research into this.
Thank you very much for the extremely interesting presentation. Hans Powell's looking at investing in a startup project on social impact, financial inclusion. Financial inclusion, you have the products and you're continuing to develop the products now. Part of financial inclusion also depends on financial literacy, financial capability. What exactly is M-Pesa doing to improve the situation in that front?
It's an interesting question. When people say that, generally they don't have the answer, so I'll try to figure out. In Kenya, we don't have a problem with financial literacy for some reason. Our literacy rate in Kenya is somewhere in the order of 70%. I think we have a lot of education that goes out with M-Pesa, with our agents. There's a lot of education about that. The challenge is more in Mozambique, where fundamental literacy is in the order of 35-40%, even less. Obviously, there's a big challenge for the government there about that. And there, I think we have a big challenge in getting and doing this. What we have done in Mozambique is, rather than start with P2P payments, transfer of money from person to person, we actually started with paying electricity bills. And electricity bills, people worry about the electricity going out, and many people are connected to the grid, and it's all a prepaid business there. And people now, when they found that they could pay the electricity bill in the middle of the night, suddenly became very literate about how to use the M-Pesa product. And now we're seeing many more P2P transactions. But I agree with you. We generally work with quite a lot of NGOs when we work with M-Pesa in a country. Many NGOs who help us spread the M-Pesa word, help us with financial inclusion. It's not just us by ourselves. I mean, we're a mobile operator. But so I think there's more to be done for sure. Much more, I think. But it's amazing, when I first went to Kenya, I was actually working in Hungary. And when I went to Kenya, the people who sent me there said, look, this is going to be obviously a failed venture. It's a country very corrupt, just not going to take off. And actually, when you go there and you see the entrepreneurship of people, in Africa is just amazing to you. You know, you provide them with the tools and they will find a way to get into business. You won't see people sitting around in the streets, you know, like in other countries. You will see people actually wanting to work, and they find ways to educate themselves. And we are looking at social impact business, by the way, just a side effect of M-Pesa. Because when we started with M-Pesa, because we didn't know it would be such a big success, we agreed with the regulator that the cash that sits in the M-Pesa system, we talked about this last night, but the cash that sits in the M-Pesa system doesn't sit in the company. It sits in a trust account, a separate trust account. The trustees actually don't even live in Kenya of that trust account. So the money doesn't sit on our balance sheet. So we thought this is fine, this is normal. And then somebody said, what are you about the interest rate? Or what about the interest that we will earn? Of course, this money stayed in the account for 2 days or so. And they said, well, we need just enough interest to pay the audit fees and the banking fees, and that's about it. In fact, this has grown to be so big that we actually started an M-Pesa foundation to spend this money. It is now in the millions and millions and millions of euros. Because, you know, you can imagine we're doing 1.6 billion euros a month at 30 euro increments. You can imagine how much money is floating around in the system. You can imagine the interest actually just on the Kenyan system is about between 800 and 900,000 euros a month. What do you do with this interest? You can't give it back to the people because we're not a deposit-taking institution. So what do you do with it? So we've agreed to form an M-Pesa foundation, and we're actually using this money now to build high schools. So it's the first M-Pesa Academy opened just in February this year. A free high school, by the way, too.
I have also a question for some free consulting. Some banks here do ask what can they learn from M-Pesa that they can use in this country.
Okay. I said in preamble to why I was thinking about what I generally, when I have public speak, I generally manage to insult most of the banking fraternity. And I'll try to not, as the bank, as my host, I don't want to insult them now. I think the banks need to find ways how to change their operating models to be able to better serve people at the base of the pyramid. I think the way the banking has grown up and evolved over the years, you know, it's more like originally how retail is. You can charge what the customer can bear, what the market can bear. That's what you charge. I think it should be the other way around. How can we make our charges as low as possible to attract more customers to come into our banks or to come into our system to work with us? Perhaps you don't need bricks and mortar banks. Perhaps you can make more online facilities available, more easy for bank correspondence like they've done in India, where you make it very inexpensive for people to interact with you and to become part of your bank. In India, I mentioned how difficult the market is in India. In India, as I said, there's 200 million migrant laborers at any one time. These are people who are working and living away from home, who need to send money home on a regular basis. The banks have started to create this bank correspondent idea, where they set up an entrepreneur in the middle of the slum, in the street, with a laptop and a broadband connection. And somebody comes up and says, I want to send my money to this particular village, person home. If they've opened up a bank account there, he can do that immediately, instantaneously, and the charge is less than 1% of the transaction fee, of the transaction value. In fact, they're competing with us. We find it difficult to compete against the banks in India to send money home. The challenge, of course, is when the money ends up in the bank on the other side. In India in particular, it's very difficult to get the money out of the banks not because they don't want to give it, but because they run out of cash on the same day of every month, or the power runs out and they can't dispense cash. But I think the banks need to think about how they can change their operating models. But I don't want to be too arrogant about the banking system because I've never really worked in it, so I don't actually know how you work. I always complain about banks, but you know, as they say, you know, you change your partner more often than you change your bank account, so I guess you have something going for you.
My name is Caroline Lenz. I work for the European Microfinance Network, and therefore I'm mostly interested in your experiences in Romania and Albania. And maybe you can share a few words on how your experience was in these countries, especially relating to microfinance institutions, if you have seek there also for partnerships, and maybe also some recommendations, because generally also we find MFIs in Europe are looking towards getting more innovative and untapping the potential of digitalization and innovations. And maybe you have learned some insights about you know, how is their approach to this, and maybe what could they do better, or yeah.
I think you probably experienced the same challenges we experienced in Albania and Romania. First, people are deeply suspicious of banking institutions there, very deeply suspicious. They don't trust the banks at all. Also, the regulators are, because they want to be part of the EU, are using the e-money regulations of the EU to regulate our business, which is quite difficult to balance the two things, where you have a relatively unsophisticated, unbanked population or reluctantly banked population and e-money regulation. So we have not had great success in Romania, Albania yet. It's been quite tough because you probably know this, or I don't know if you know this, but in Romania and Albania, when the average person, I want to talk about the normal high-end middle income person, but the base of the pyramid, from the middle to the base of the pyramid, when they get paid, they have to get paid by law through the bank. They get paid on the same day. They stand at the ATM, and these huge long lines at the ATM. They take all their money out, okay, all their cash out, and then they walk from there to the electricity company and pay their bill in cash at the electricity company and get a stamp in their book. And then they go to the TV company and they do the same, and they go to the telephone company and they do the same. And when you ask them, why are you doing this? You can do this all electronically. You can just have a banking account and operate your mobile banking account. They don't trust the banks. They don't want to leave their money in the banks. So we have to change that dynamic, and we're working slowly with them. We don't have any microfinance experience in Romania yet. It's beginning, we're starting to see some interest, but we don't have it yet. We've only been there now just over a year now, and it's quite early days. So we still have to get a critical mass of customers, I think, before we can go to the microfinance institutions and say, we have a product that you can use and it's trusted. That's why I think international money transfer is our entree into both Romania and Albania. If we can make that work, people will trust that when they receive money on their mobile phone and they don't have to take it out immediately, they can actually use it to pay their bills and transfer money to their kids at school and things like that, then I think we will start to have a winning formula. But we're not there yet. We're still way away because of this deep mistrust of I don't think just the banking institution, I think in general of any sort of institution that may have been related to the previous regime, which is a big challenge. Although there's lots of cash floating around. You just have to go to Albania and Romania to see lots of cash floating around. In fact, one of our banks, our partner bank in Albania, I think is the Raiffeisen Bank there. So let's see. It's early days yet. I'm hopeful. I'm not usually optimistic.
I propose a last question before we go to the closing remarks, because I'm also looking to the time. Yes, please.
Hi, Berto de Beek from BRS. You mentioned in your presentations 4 to 5 investments or factors you need in order to get this successful. You mentioned 2, distribution and a good back office. Maybe I missed the other ones, but
no, I didn't. It's because they're so important. They take some time to talk about. So I'll just say them briefly. The number one thing you need to have is 100% support from the management, top management, from the CEO and down, of determination to be successful. This is a product you need to be passionate about. It is not a product that you do with your head. You do this product with your heart. Because if you get the finance guy in, he's going to always tell you this is a dud, don't do it, don't come near it, it's never going to make any money. He will always tell you that because that's his job. So my philosophy has always been to keep the CFO quite far away from this product. So you need to be very dedicated and passionate about this product to be successful. That's the number one thing. If you don't have that, it will not work, full stop. Doesn't matter. I've done a research on all these 15 companies, why they've been successful. And all of them, you see who the CEOs are and what kind of people they are. And in fact, just recently we had to stop one of our mobile money operations because of this lack of support. Second thing is the distribution network, which I've mentioned. The third thing is a trusted brand. You need to have a trusted brand that people will trust your brand and you will not run away with their money, which is the problem we have to some extent in India and in Romania and Albania. You need to be a trusted brand, so when poor people give you their money, they know you will not run away with their money, and you will solve their problem if it comes up. The fourth thing is the technology. It needs to be 100% reliable, not 95%, not 99%. In the telecoms business, we accept that you will have drop calls. Now I see the industry saying, well, guarantee if you have a drop call, we'll give your money back. But we can't afford to have a drop call. So we have to have 99.9999 reliability in our systems. And this requires quite a big investment for your platform to be that kind of successful. When we started out, it was disastrous. We probably had 60% reliability in our early days. But now they're quite severe. And the fifth thing is, really you need to focus on this thing, because you can't afford to lose people's money. In some of my time, I've had the experience where we had for, say, a minute or 75 seconds, we lost, the system went down and then came back up again, and we weren't sure if all the transactions were completed or not in that period. We tracked down every single transaction and we gave people their money back, even if the transaction was successful. And so you need to make sure that you never have a run on your bank, because the word spreads very quickly. And that's what you need to do. And these are things, you can live one with 4 out of the 5, you need all of them all the time. And if you fail, you will fail. If you fail at any one of them, you will fail 100% with everything else. And you can see, if you do the research of the 273 operators, you can see where all the failures are. And I can name them if you want, but embarrassing. Yeah.
Michael, thanks very much for your presentations and these questions. Michael will join us also during lunch, so if you have still some questions, don't hesitate, you can ask them personally to him during lunchtime. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. It's quite a challenge to come after such a speaker as Michael. Inspiring story, both for the M-Pesa solution, but also, as you mentioned at the end, for the kind of leadership that it takes to have the courage to invest before you see the immediate financial results. So it's amazing. And it's a mobile solution world. I read recently some figures of the World Bank that by 2020, the number of smartphones in the world will double to 5 billion smartphones, whereas there will be about 6 billion people older than 16 years. So smartphones will also arrive in all countries, in all areas, and then again, change the landscape and create challenges for M-Pesa, I guess, but also large opportunities. And all this mobile and digital revolution is not only a challenge for them, as Frankie said in the beginning, it's also a challenge for banks. In the newspaper, the TED, there is now a series going on the same topic. What do banks survive? Well, banks are dinosaurs. At least that's a quote from Bill Gates. And the most remarkable thing is that he said it in 1994. At that time already, he wanted to attack banks via technology companies. It didn't work for quite some time. But the last few years, you see quite some big digital challenges for banks. Mainly from 3 parts. One is the fintechs, financial technology companies, many small startups attacking a specific area of the bank. None of them want to be a bank, by the way. They all want to be in one area of banking, be it credit, with crowdfunding, etc., being in the savings area with robo-advisors, or in the payments area, which is the biggest combat area, let's say, where there's a huge number of fintechs, small and big, challenging us. Second big challenge is the large technology companies, Facebook, Google, Apple, who on top of the technology add a reputation, which is, they've often a good brand name, and they want to sell payment services, not for the payments, but they want to get your data, they want to get information about you to use it in their business model. So it's a big, second big challenge. The third one is challenges like M-Pesa from totally different markets, where a different set of creativity comes up to find solutions and could enter our market. So it's quite some challenge. So are we done as banks? Well, we have some assets also in, as you also mentioned, in Belgium and Western Europe. We are trusted brands for the financial transactions, which is very important. You mentioned that Safaricom was important as a brand to start up, a trusted brand. That is an asset we have. Second asset is regulation. You can't imagine it, that it's an asset, but it's a huge amount of work, and only banks have like the courage and the time to go through it. And thirdly, scale. I think in Belgium, almost everybody has a bank account, a payment card, etc. But that's not enough. We should learn, we should evolve, and we should learn from all those players. And when we look at it, we need to learn 3 things. One, it's convenience. A lot of those fintech players, also M-Pesa, offer an easy-to-use solution for your local market. Apple, with the Apple Pay, you can pay with Touch ID. That's the kind of convenience we need to learn from all those tech startups. Actually, also to help create financial literacy in a broader scale in our markets. Secondly, we need to, apart from convenience, we need to develop full solutions for our customers. Not just offer a payment or a credit or a saving, but try to create a whole solution. For example, in KBC, we have for merchants a City Life loyalty platform, which we then link with a payments platform, and which we will link up with, again, other functionalities. So that for a merchant, for example, it's a full service. That's a way for us to survive or win. Thirdly, if you can't beat them, join them. A lot of banks are in that area. Different ways of cooperation with fintechs, small, large, learning and cooperating. The Start It initiative in many different cities, where KBC invites startups to be hosted, is a way for us. It's for free, we don't earn money, but it's a way for us to learn and to learn and to learn. So to conclude, are banks gone? And to refer to the dinosaurs, well, the dinosaurs did rule the world for 140 million years. We started in 1400, so I guess we still have some time to go. Thank you.